Hi, welcome back, and of course, I remain Moses. In today's video tutorial, we'll be touching some basic terms of the website. And without any further ado, let's get started. So, 30 years ago, when the internet was still in its infancy, computers were only able to communicate using numbers. To visit a website in those days, you must know the unique number assigned to that site. This unique number is what we call the IP address. Now, using the university system, every student have a unique number we call their matric number. Now, no two students can have exactly the same matric number. That was the way the internet works those days. Every website have a unique number, and this unique number is what we call the IP address. So what is an IP address? Hope you are jotting something down. An IP address looks something like this: 127.33.54.200. For example, the IP address of Facebook is 69.63.176.13. Meaning, in those days, to visit Facebook, it is this string of number you are going to input into your browser address. So to visit Facebook, you input the number. To visit LinkedIn, it has its own unique IP address. To visit another website, it has its own unique IP address. So, as you can see, the numbers are hard to remember, and we humans, I presume, are not robots. We are not robots. Cramming all these numbers will be a difficult task for us, since we are not robots. We needed a way to translate computer-readable information into human-readable strings, into human-readable text. And then in the early 1980s, Paul Spantrix came up with a system that automatically mapped IP addresses to domain names that are easier to remember, and the DNS was born. So you may be wondering, this is getting complicated now. Okay, let me explain in simple terms. So let's assume we have a university and we have students. Every student with their matric number. Now, a lecturer can't remember all the matric numbers of all the students. That is why their name is also unique. So for example, when you are entering the university, you are told to drop your first name, your last name, and your middle name. No two persons can have exactly the same three names in the university. Even if they have exactly the same three names, their matric number will definitely be different. So instead of the lecturer calling out your matric number, he calls you by your name. So instead of the lecturer calling your matric number, he calls you by your name. So person. So that's what the domain name and the IP address looks like. The IP address stands like your matric number, while the domain name is like your real name. So then people were not able to comprehend or understand or remember all this IP address, all these numbers. Then this man came up with a system that made it easy for IP address to be mapped to a name that we call the domain name. So let's follow the story. This same system still serves as the backbone of the modern internet today. Here is how this works. Every website on the web has an IP address, and this IP address is assigned a unique name known as the domain name. Now, the system through which all this work is what we call the DNS, the domain name system. The DNS is like a server, it's like a database that stores all domain names and maps it to its IP address. Example of domain names are facebook.com, spantrix.com, etc. This is what happens when you type in a domain name, e.g. Facebook, into your web browser. The domain name you entered is first converted into an IP address. The browser then looks for the web server with the associated domain name within the DNS system. I said the DNS is like a server, it's like a database, it's a system, and this stores the IP address of all websites. So when you go to your browser and you input spantrix.com, the browser first converts this domain name into an IP address, then look for the domain name or the server associated with the IP address to get the information you are requesting for. We'll still go into more details on this later, but right now, I want you to start thinking in the light of domain names, IP addresses, and web server whenever you hear the name of a website. Let's come back to web design and development. Though I've touched this before, but I'll go over it again. Web design is the process of creating a website. It involves several different aspects, including graphics design, content writing, and production. One of the easiest ways to design and develop a website is by making use of a content management system, also known as CMS. For easy comprehension, say you need a fully furnished 3-bedroom flat in just 1 month. Like, I must be joking, right? Of course, it looks impossible. You can purchase an already existing building or house structure from a real estate agent, furnish it to your style, repaint it with your desired colors, and get it ready in a month or less. That is exactly how CMS works. CMS saves you the stress of writing codes to build a website. So a CMS is like a system, a structure that enables you to build a website without having to write any code at all. I'll touch more on this later, but let's continue with our terminology. So the next thing is the website. I've explained what the IP address is. I've explained what a domain name is. I've explained what a DNS stands for. DNS stands for domain name server. And I've explained the relationship between these three. Now let's go to a website. A website is a collection of web pages. For example, when you visit a website, you will see links to different pages. You see stuff like home, about, contact, etc. Now the collections of all these pages makes up what we call a website. Now, what are web pages? What is a web page? A web page is a document for the World Wide Web. It is displayed using a web browser. A collection of many web pages makes up a website. Illustratively, web pages can be likened to rooms present in a house with different occupants and content. Home, about us, contact us, etc. are all web pages. Now let's move on. We have the www, which also stands for the World Wide Web, commonly known as the web. It's an information system where documents and other web resources are accessed through an identifiable link called URL. In simple terms, the World Wide Web is a collection of websites with numerous web pages and documents. They can be identified and linked by URL. Though I've touched this before, but I'm going to go over it again. The internet. The internet is a vast network or connection that connects computers all over the world. Through the internet, people can share information and communicate from anywhere. You are able to connect to the web via an internet connection. From this explanation, you should note that the web is different from the internet. It is therefore wrong to say check the internet for this or check the internet for your assignment or for that. Instead, say check the web for the meaning of this or that. You connect the web using an internet connection. So moving up with our terminologies, we have the domain name. A domain name is the address of a website on the World Wide Web. Like we have addresses for houses, so we have a domain name for websites. A domain name is a unique address or link to the location of a website on the World Wide Web. No two websites can have the same domain name, as no two houses can have the same house address. I already use a university system as an example. No two students can have exactly the same matric number, which stands for our IP address, and their name as the domain name. Now, using a community standard, the house will serve as our website, while the address to that house will be the domain name. So no two houses can have exactly the same house address. Now moving on, we have the web server. A web server is a storage space where all the content and documents of a website are stored for accessibility to the World Wide Web. See a web server as a plot of land or plots of land on which a house is built. As a plot of land is to a house, so is a server to a website. You need a plot of land to build your house. You also need a server to store your website. Your house is placed on the land. Your website document is placed in a server. I hope you are writing some things down. The next thing we want to go into is the web host. A web host is a service that makes it possible for you to have a server where your website can be hosted. For easy comprehension, you can say a web host can be likened to a real estate agency owning a large area of land where individuals can buy a plot of land or more to build their house or structure. For example, Spantrix is a web host service provider. To be able to build your house, you need the land, and to be able to get the land, you need to buy it from someone. Now, you need to go and meet a real estate agency or a real estate agent to get a land. Now, the real estate agent can be likened to a web host service provider. Example, Spantrix. Now, before we move forward, let's go into what CMS stands for. CMS stands for Content Management System. As earlier explained, CMS can be likened to an already made building waiting to be furnished and repeated to suit your style. CMS can be likened to a building made already, a structure made already. The only thing it needs is for it to be furnished and painted to suit your style. An example of CMS is the Wordpress. We'll go into further explanation as regards the CMS in the next video tutorial. But what I just want you to understand is it is possible for you to build a website without having to write any code at all. So this is where we're going to stop for this video tutorial, and we're going to continue from here the next tutorial.